a second.
Oh. He was.
Yeah, I didn't even feel him move.
Welcome to tonight's meeting of August 14th, 2023. Council questions for tonight first. Councilor Rosati, Councilor Seymour,
No, thank you.
Councilor Emmons, Councilor Baker.
I just had the question about the leasehold.
Let me pull that up. I received your message and one moment. Let's see.
We met with Jefferson County School Board last week, and that was great to really just collaborate.
This isn't reports, this is questions for the agenda.
Oh, sorry.
Yep. Questions will be next,
I was
or
just,
repeat.
I was just trying to be efficient.
Okay, yeah, so Councilor Baker, you had asked for a description of the leasehold in item 10B. And under the terms of the financing, the city will lease the new building and the land it is located on to the U.S. Bank Trust Company, National Association. They are the trustee, and they will hold that under the terms of a site lease. The site lease conveys a leasehold interest in the land to the trustee, and title to the land will remain with the city. Under the terms of the lease, the city will lease the land back from the trustee and will lease the building from the trustee. Title to the land will remain with the city throughout the term of the lease and the site lease, both.
Okay, and how big is the land? Is it just that portion of like the current parking lot? Or is it a larger portion, or
That, let me see if,
is it just the footprint of the building?
I would look to, let's see if we have anyone who might know the exact, so the footprint of the leased area. Because the building sits on a parcel right now, I think that the footprint of the leased area would include the current building, because they haven't yet designed the footprint of the new building. So I think that the leased area would likely include the current building plus the surrounding parcel.
Is there any way we can find out?
Well, when the item comes up, we can certainly ask Ms. Crawford from Butler Snow,
Okay.
who's likely most familiar with the description, the legal description of the footprint of the
Thank you.
leased area.
Mayor Pro Tem?
No
Councilor Namella?
I had questions, but I have to look them back up. I can hold them until, I think they were in study session items, I believe, so.
Okay. Okay. Now for council reports. Councilor Rosati?
Just a big thank you to the city staff who put together the movies in the park. Last Friday's was really great. The screen was particularly large, and everyone loved just the size of it. It was really convenient. So thanks to the staff.
Councilor Seymour?
No, nothing last week other than, and I'm sure the mayor, Councilor Emmons will report on that. We had an excellent gathering with city staff. Superintendent Dorland from Jefferson County Schools and their entire board, COO, CFO, communications, and Manager Freitag, so I thought it was a very productive chat that evening.
Councilor Emmons?
Agreed. Jefferson County School Board was great to just collaborate on thoughts, ideas, and what's working well, what's not, where we can lean in and where we can be focusing more on our students. There was an overwhelming gratitude for SROs in schools, so that was really great to hear. And then I was wearing 2 hats that night, trying to run up and down with planning commission. But
They threw you out pretty quickly.
yeah, they already started their meeting, so had to run back down to Jeffco School Board. So, but overall, it was a good night.
Counselor Baker,
Nope.
Mayor Pro Tem.
I did not make the inclusivity board, and I don't think that Counselor Zadi was able to make it. I did listen to the meeting. They had a robust conversation around proclamation that I put forward for Indigenous people in Columbus Day. So I anticipate getting some feedback or critique around that. The other thing that they talked about is they talked about some grants and stuff. Similar to the Parks Rec and Open Space Board, there was advisement about how to spend those funds being tax funds and out of the city budget. So what they came up with was that they wanted to support the Art a la carte night on September 8th with hiring an artist who would do something around inclusivity focused painting or art. And so there's been basically I'm asking that council supports that effort. But that seems to be the desire to make sure that council would support that initiative if they go forward with that to spend those dollars. So I think that it would be good if we could get support to do that.
Do you need that tonight?
Yes, please, if
Counselor
you want
Baker?
to or not.
Should use it for, how much money are we talking about?
$1,000.
It's okay.
Has it been vetted by staff? Because I don't want to overdo or overstep what staff is already.
It has, and the ask was to make sure that council was on board with it.
For the art on the card. It's fine.
Counselor Seymour?
I'm fine with it.
Counselor Zadi? You've got 7, okay. Anything else?
Nope.
Counselor Namella?
No, just been a busy week getting ready for school. I'm sure a lot of people are in the city.
Friday night movie in the park was great. One woman came up to me that lives in downtown, and we must be watering during different times of the day that we shouldn't be watering. And so I said I would bring it to somebody else that lives there so that you could check into it, because I have no idea who at this point controls what area. She couldn't give me a certain, it took me a while to understand that she lived in downtown. I thought she was talking about the area where Cocapelli's is, that whole shopping area. And she finally said, no, it's downtown. So if somebody could check on what time those sprinklers go off down there, it shouldn't be in the middle of the day, from her perspective. Yes, our Jeffco School Board meeting couldn't have been better. It was, learned so much from them. They had questions for us. Thank the staff people that were there because they had questions for everybody. We were able to answer those, and Chief was there to be able to talk about our SROs and stuff, so it was good. And I was asked to go to Tri-City yesterday. They were honoring Larry Robbins, who was our chaplain for the police department for many, many years, but he celebrated his 40th year there at Tri-City yesterday, and so they had a big deal for him. He's a very humble man. It was hard for him to sit there and listen, but he did a great job. So wanted to just share that. Then I sent out to everybody Highway 7 letter from from 36 Commuting Solutions. Need to know if I can sign that on our behalf for the funds that they're trying to get for Highway 7. It's going to be a long process, as all of our road projects are, to get money to get that piece from Boulder to Brighton done, but they're getting started, and so I need to know if I have people to go ahead with that. Yes, Mayor Pro Tem? Yeah?
Yep, I'm good.
Yes.
Okay, I will email her tonight,
I just
thanks.
sent you a reply too.
Okay, perfect.
I'm replying to my reply.
City manager, anything? Well, first, we have a guest tonight. Somebody actually paid money
Mayor,
to come to a meeting and eat with us, and she did. Lori Goldstein from the Rotary's silent auction that I think Abby and Cody were part of. So we helped raise money for their fundraiser, but you paid the money, so thanks for being here tonight. And she is board chair of Adams 12 Public Schools, so thanks for being here. We had good conversation. Part of it was about who was where in Dakotas.
All right.
So, Counselor Baker.
Yeah, I basically forgot. I wanted to ask for two updates. One is on the Bar Lane property, and have we made any headway with the property there? And then number two is I'd like a status report on the Knox Court property, and have we exercised our lien against it?
Both of those updates will be in this Friday's update to the council, because you had asked about those previously, and so we had scheduled those for this. It's, you know, we had a couple of study sessions, and we don't do cow updates after study sessions, we do them after council meetings, so
Excellent,
those will
thank
be
you.
in Friday's update.
Anything else? Okay, we have 20 minutes before executive session in here.
Talk amongst yourselves.
is WEDA's pre-meeting agenda, August 14th, 2023. Do we have reason for executive session?
Thank you. WEDA members, there is a proposed executive session pursuant to Section 111.3C2 of the Westminster Municipal Code for the purpose of discussing strategy and progress on the sale, acquisition, trade, or exchange of property or property rights, as well as Colorado Revised Statute 246402 4E1 for the purpose of determining positions relative to matters that may be subject to negotiations and instructing negotiators related to certain agreements between the Westminster Economic Development Authority and Holly Park CLT LLC regarding the Holly Park Affordable Housing Project.
I will go around and ask council if you agree that you want to go into executive session. Councilor Zadi?
Obi, is that a yes?
Rich Seymour, yes.
Lindsay Emmons, yes.
Bruce Baker, yes.
Dave Demott, yes.
Sarah Nermala, yes.
Nancy McNally, yes. Welcome to tonight's meeting for City of Westminster's Westminster Economic Development Authority meeting. We have just been in executive session, and could we get the roll call for this session?
Board Member Baker.
Here.
Vice Chair Demott.
Here.
Board Member Emmons.
Present.
Board Member Azadi.
Here.
Chairperson McNally.
Here.
Board Member Nurmela.
Here.
And Board Member Seymour.
Here.
Is there a motion for minutes? Vice Chair? Vice Chair?
Thank you, Madam Chair. I move to approve the minutes of the July 10th, 2023 meeting as presented.
Board Member Emmons?
Second.
It's been moved and seconded to approve the minutes from July 10th, 2023. Is there any further discussion? All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries. That brings us to item 3, receive direction from Westminster Economic Development Authority Board on the Holly Park Affordable Housing Project. City Manager?
Yes, Chairperson McNally, I'd like to invite Economic Development Director Kimball to come forward with a short presentation on the topic.
Welcome.
Thank you. Good evening, WEDA board members. Lindsay Kimball, Economic Development Director. And tonight we are here to receive direction from you regarding the Holly Park Affordable Housing Project. The property that's subject of this ask tonight is the 6-acre parcel located on the west side of Federal Boulevard between 96th and 97th Avenues. And it has been in a state of flux for about 20 years now. Really quickly, some background. In 1998, the original developer, WPC, proposed to develop about 70 townhomes. About 2001, that project was defunct for all intents and purposes. It was in bankruptcy, and its primary lender, Wells Fargo, the city negotiated with Wells Fargo to purchase the property through WEDA. The city provided WEDA with a loan of $1.245 million, not just for the purchase of the property, but also for the demolition work on some of the derelict structures that remained there, as well as some of the incomplete infrastructure and other safety improvements that needed to be made to the property, and some other fees and soft costs. Following that, in 2018, the staff had 3 proposals that it put forward to this body, one of which was with ULC and the Community Land Trust to be able to develop affordable townhomes there. That was in December of 2018 that WEDA closed on the property with the developer and executed a development agreement and repurchase agreement. The repurchase agreement, which is really the crux of what we'd like direction on tonight, because we are at a very time-sensitive point where at the end of this year, if we do not decide, this body doesn't decide to either extend those deadlines or repurchase the property, you will lose your right to repurchase the property. So that's a critical timeline milestone that we need to pay attention to, and why we're here tonight before you to talk about whether this body would like to continue the project. We have, as I stated, been working for almost 5 years now on trying to get the project going and moving. Or we could repurchase the property for $1 per the repurchase right, and you would then be able to dispose of the property as you wish. With that, I'm happy to answer any questions.
Any questions? Counselor, or Board Member Seymour?
Thank you, Chair. Ms. Kimball, I understand too that the original units that are still there, those 12 owners, they in fact don't own the land under their units right now, is that correct?
That's correct. Yeah.
Thank you.
Board Member Baker?
Yes, and we have allowed really ULC several extensions in the time they had to perform to the promises they made.
Yes, sir, that's correct. There was an extension given to the commencement of construction and completion of construction. There was one amendment to extend those timeframes. Under the current agreement's operation, the deadline for commencement of construction was July 30th of 2021, which of course was approximately, over
2 years
18
ago.
months ago, 2 years ago. So that is come and gone.
Very good. Thank you.
Board Member Nurmela?
Ms. Kimball, can you remind me what, how those existing townhomes were going to be integrated or incorporated into the ULC development?
Sure. So because those property owners don't own the land under there, that was an artifact of the foreclosure process, and that was part of the package. We got also the condominiums holdings, which included that property and the property directly abutting their units. We were working with them so that they would be able to convey the property under those units, which now had been conveyed to ULC by the WIDA, and help them get their property under their units back and some of that common area back for that original 12-unit HOA that exists. So those folks can have a more conventional ownership experience there. It's not a common situation that they're in right now, where they don't even own their driveway or their sidewalk.
Just a clarification on that. So before we had transferred it, I guess when we assumed ownership of it, we took all of the land, including everything underneath them. So they never really had, since the foreclosure, a functioning HOA or...
Well, I wouldn't say that it's not functioning. They have established on their own since that time the Holly Park HOA group, and they maintain that group. The property situation, as I said, was really an artifact of the fact the original developer set it up as a condominium. So if the whole development had been developed properly, then that condominium association would have been seated properly, it would have done its job properly, and it wouldn't have taken the land out from under their units and transferred it.
Okay, so they're organized, but they just
Yes.
don't have
Yes.
any land to
Yes.
work with. Okay.
Vice Chair Demott?
So I was here when that original agreement happened, and so I guess my question is, because the value add of us making this agreement, besides having it finished, was to do something for that community that's there. So what happens to them now, depending on our actions?
Well, I would suggest that in any case, if you choose to extend, or if WIDA, the city, takes the property back, we'd like to continue those conversations with the HOA that staff already has been involved in, to provide certain benefits and of course provide the land back to those property owners and help them be able to be independent again and stand on their own as a functioning HOA and controlling their common areas. We have gotten really far with that, and kudos to Community Development and Public Works for working really hard to get some of those points of that deal put together. But I would highly recommend that whatever you do, really a priority should be to get that land back to those owners.
Well, I agree. I mean, that was, like I said, in 2018 when this came before the body, which I believe I'm the only one who's still here from that. That was, in my opinion, was the value add, was to do something to make them whole. So I guess the real question that I'm getting at is, if I understand what you're saying correctly, today the group who we thought was going to do that hasn't, on top of they haven't met their obligation to the city as far as what they were supposed to do in terms of development. But with that being said, does this better tool us to, A, do something different with the property and have it potentially see its full potential, but B, actually be able to do something for these folks? Because obviously if they're not building, they're also not doing kind of that, you know, spoken or unspoken agreement that that group was going to get taken care of. Would I be accurate?
Sure, absolutely, and especially if you chose to repurchase the property, you would have full control over that destiny of what happens to that and how we continue our relationship with the HOA and make them whole.
Great, thank you.
Board Member Emmons?
Thank you. I believe you have it in the staff report, but I just want to better understand if, depending on the outcome of actions tonight, what does the zoning look like for the property?
Sure. So the combined PDP and ODP that was approved in 1998 is still valid. There have not been any amendments to either one of those. So that allowed for up to 70 townhome units to be built in various buildings, generally with 5 or 6 in a building block together, as well as a clubhouse and a pool and things like that for the community. So that is still on the books. The property is still entitled for that. That's a value add to the property, frankly, that it has that entitlement already. And actually, the prior developer who was not successful, WPC, even paid the PLD fees already. So that's already been taken care of.
Okay. So if any developer wanted to change an ODP, they just have to go through the process like anybody else?
Yes.
Okay.
Yes.
All right. Thank you.
Vice Chair?
I'm curious to move forward, do we need to make a motion to give direction? Because we don't usually have that. So if so, I would like to recommend that we give staff direction to move forward with exercising our right to buy back the property.
It's been moved and seconded to give direction to staff to buy back this property.
Thank you very much.
Thank you. Is there any further discussion? I too think that I was here in 2001 when all of this was going on and when some things fell apart for those 12 homes that are there in those townhomes. And they have been more than patient. They've gone through so much, and so whatever we can do to help make them whole is beyond time. I'm happy about the ODP still being valid because that just does so much. And, you know, you have to weigh. We've given 5 years. We've seen absolutely nothing. Come down to the wire, want another extension. This property since 1998 has sat there. And so I wholeheartedly believe, let's go forward and get it sold, get something moving there, and get the 12 families that do live there whole again and working together with their 70 new neighbors. So, Board Member Nermilla?
I feel pretty similarly. So I understand that it's hard to get a project off the ground, but I also am looking at not just a lack of activity on the planning side, but also a lack of activity on working with the existing residents. And so I think just repurchasing this back gives us at least the control to be able to work with the residents, get them whole, and then move on.
Mayor or Vice Chair?
I just want to quickly say I'm in favor of this because reasons mentioned here, I think it's important that group has not seen, what they thought they bought into for how many decades now. But the other thing that if you look at this, when we as a city continuously are talking about missing middle, this is already zoned for townhomes that we sorely need. We've seen it in our downtown developments where those townhomes were sold out before they were even done being built. So there's obviously a need for this product, and so to watch that property sit vacant while those people still wait for empty promises, I think is a hard pill for me to swallow. So I'm glad to see that we actually are at a point in time where there's still a good market for that kind of need. So I hope that it gets moving quickly.
Seeing no more comments, roll call please.
Board Member Baker.
Yes.
Vice Chair Demott.
Yes.
Board Member Emmons.
Yes.
Board Member Azadi.
Yes.
Chair McNally.
Yes.
Board Member Nermella.
Yes.
And Board Member Seymour.
Yes.
The motion passes on a 7-0 vote.
is now 7:52, and we'll adjourn the WEDA meeting and go straight into our city council meeting for August 14th, 2023. Please stand and join me in the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. City Clerk, may I just incorporate the roll call from our past meeting?
Yes.
And that brings us to consideration of minutes of the preceding meeting, July 24th. Mayor Pro Tem?
Thank you, Mayor. I move to approve the minutes of the July 24th, 2023 meeting as presented.
Counselor Seymour?
Second.
It's been moved and seconded to approve the minutes. Is there any further discussion? All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries. Would Deputy Dorr and his crew come on down? Don't be shy. Come on down. Gosh, this one's heavy. Land. Oh, that one's heavier. I do this one at a time. I know I'm out of order, but this one's the budget one. You introduce your crew and tell us why we're here.
Thank you so much. I'm Larry Dorr, Deputy City Manager and Chief Financial Officer, and I'll hand the microphone to John on the end. We'll go this way, and then I'll allow Terry Velasquez to describe why we're here, and also she'll introduce herself and her colleague. Just a moment.
Thank you, Larry. John Praisner, Policy and Budget Manager, representing the Policy and Budget Division, and I'd like to thank and recognize Michael Parlow, Teresa Balco, and Fred Cullum, who is not here, and then also Chris Lindsay.
Hi, everyone. Michael Parlow, Policy and Budget Coordinator.
Teresa Boko, Policy and Budget Coordinator.
Yuki Wu, Business Operations Analyst with the Finance Department.
Vicki Adams, Business Operations Administrator.
Thank you. Sherry Sanchez, Accounting Division Manager. Hi, I'm Amber Vieira. I am the CGFOA President this year.
Hello, my name's Terry Velasquez. In my day job, I'm the Finance Director for the City of Aurora, Colorado. And in addition to being the Finance Director, I serve as the immediate past President for the Government Finance Officers Association of the United States and Canada. So it truly is an honor to be here. It's an honor to be part of this award for the City of Westminster. I've known Larry for many years, and it's an honor really to present this award to you all from GFOA. And this award, well, actually both awards are really monumental awards. They don't come easy. They take a lot of staff work and effort. And I just want to thank you for all the effort that went into it. I know there were a lot of accounting standards that went into play into this one. So you all still have your hair intact. It's a tough one. It's a tough one. But it definitely is one of those challenging ACFR awards. So congratulations, great job. And Amber, anything else you'd like to say?
Really, just congratulations, you guys. This really is a demanding award to receive, and I believe it was 39 years for budget, ACFR, excuse me, and 3 years for the budget award. So congratulations, you guys.
Thank you so much.
You can come into the circle, I don't bite. I've had my rabies shots. So this first one is the Government Finance Officers Association Distinguished Budget Presentation Award presented to the City of Westminster, Colorado. And congratulations and thanks for all you have done. And that's
Thank you. This is really an honor to receive this award, this achievement award tonight. There were a whole lot of people who are behind
receiving the award. I have a team, I want to say probably roughly a dozen staff members that work regularly on our annual financial report. You've met a couple of them tonight already. Vicki Adams and then Yuki Wu from my team are here tonight. I don't know if I can remember them all by name here tonight, but I'll recognize Gary Newcomb, Lori Nusser, Dawn Cartier, Sherry Duran, Lori Stevens, Kim McDaniel. Oh, we're going deep now. Okay, yeah, and Sherry Young, she was part of that, and then those are the ones that I can remember. So just thanks to everybody who played a part in that. Thanks.
Thank you, Mayor and Mayor Pro Tem and members of City Council for letting us acknowledge these distinguished teams and these prestigious awards, and to welcome our guests here to Westminster to do that. Thank you so much.
This heavy one. How many do you have on your wall since it's been so many years?
This is 39 for the 2021.
Do we have a special wall? That many on the wall, they got to be supported somehow.
Yeah, we do.
This one is the Government and Finance Officers Association Certificate of Achievement for Excellence in Financial Reporting, presented to the City of Westminster, Colorado, and this one goes from 2013 to 2022. So, congratulations.
One person over on this side. There we go. We're gonna make sure we can see it. All right, right here. 1, 2, 3. 1, 2, 3. Congratulations.
Thank you, Mayor.
Thank you for doing that. That was great.
Thank you so much.
Okay, next, I need the crew that puts on the city employee fund. And I know Nikki always pops right up. Look at this crew. Ooh. With licorice whips or what?
Yes, ma'am.
Oh, that's pressure. Okay. This is a great crew. I am going to hand the microphone down at the end, and you introduce yourselves.
Hi, I'm Lori Gardner.
Shelby Wood.
Debbie Schofield.
Bev Smith.
Gracie Bingham.
TJ Schreider.
Will Leo.
Nikki Leo.
Davey Godfrey.
Veronica Smith.
Tammy Nooning.
Jocelyn Coulter.
Rachel Patterson.
Debbie Olguin.
Andrew Smith.
And Miss Nikki, do you want to tell us a little bit of, don't spoil all the fun of what's going to happen, but just some little snippets that get us all interested?
Sure. We will be celebrating Employee Appreciation Week, the week of Labor Day, September 5th through the 8th. We have several things planned. On the Tuesday, a special departmental day, so we let the departments decide what they'd like to do for their staff. Davey, I'm new boss, so yeah, looking out for that. Wednesday, we have a special delivery, so that's usually a well-kept secret, but it's not so much anymore. And then Thursday, we'll have our employee barbecue, which, as you know, is the most popular event that we do all year. And we're expecting 600 to 700 employees. Yeah.
Well, we have a proclamation from all of council here. And whereas Westminster citizens have given the city very high service ratings in each of the past citizen surveys, attesting to the high quality of services provided by Westminster employees. And whereas Westminster employees are in large part responsible for the city's national and regional reputation for quality, progressive municipal government, and whereas the full-time and part-time benefited employees, along with the seasonal and non-benefited employees, have contributed significantly to the quality of life of Westminster citizens. And whereas these employees who are employed in the city attorney's office, city manager's office, community development, economic development, finance, fire, human services, information technology, parks, recreation and libraries, police, and public works and utilities departments comprise a workforce that is unquestionably one of the city's most valuable resources. And whereas on September 7th, 2023, the employee barbecue lunch will be held at West Village Park in an effort to recognize all city employees and to enjoy the company and friendship of coworkers. And whereas the week of September 4th, 2023 will include several other activities designed to express appreciation to city employees. Now therefore, I, Nancy McNally, the city of Westminster, now therefore, I, Mayor Nancy McNally, of the City of Westminster, Colorado, on behalf of the entire City Council, do hereby proclaim September 4th through September 8th, 2023 as City of Westminster Employee Appreciation Week. Congratulations. That brings us to the public comment portion of the meeting, and it is an opportunity for the public to communicate with City Council. Each participant will be given no more than 5 minutes on any topic they choose. Public comment is not intended to be a back and forth discussion. If there is a public hearing scheduled for an item on which you wish to speak, please hold your comments and testify when that public hearing is called. Tonight, there are no public hearings. This evening, the city clerk has informed me we have 3 emails by the deadline, which have been posted on the online agenda packet and forwarded directly to the city council, and 1 voicemail, which will be played back after our live speakers have concluded their remarks. City clerk, would you please call the first speaker?
Excuse me. The first speaker is Kim McKenna.
Welcome.
Good evening, my name is Kim McKenna, and I reside at 9311 West 90th Place in Westminster, Colorado. I'm not sure what can be done about my concern, but if I say nothing, nothing ever will change. I've noticed an increase in the volume of cars and the speed in which they travel on Independence Drive near Stanley Lake. On Saturday, August 5th at approximately 8:45, when I do my walk, I was almost hit by a speeding vehicle traveling through the blinking crosswalk located just north of West 93rd Avenue on Independence. Before entering the crosswalk, I looked in both directions. I tapped on the button to turn on the blinking flashers to cross the street. As I did so, a car was coming north on Independence at an excessive speed. I made the assumption that he would slow down upon approaching the blinking light. I was mistaken. I took 1 step out to the crosswalk and then had to jump backwards in order to avoid being hit. As I did so, there was also a woman jogging with her dog. She had a headset on, and she had made the same assumption. I put my arm to block her as I jumped backwards, and the two of us and her dog were knocked backwards on the sidewalk. The driver of the vehicle did not slow down whatsoever, and as he passed, he looked at us angrily and then made a gesture with his middle finger. I wish I'd gotten his license plate number. However, my heart was beating so rapidly, and the woman and the dog were really upset. It was all I could do to calm us all down. Again, I'm not sure what we can do about this, but if I say nothing, I feel it would only get worse. The traffic and the speed down Independence is a danger. I love where I live. I love where I walk every day. I don't want to have to be afraid for my life crossing a street. Thank you for your time.
Thank you for coming tonight.
The next speaker is Alan Farb.
Welcome.
This summer, cities across Colorado hit record temperatures, with Denver tying its highest temperature ever recorded, 105 degrees Fahrenheit. Extreme heat poses health risks to all Coloradans, but for people experiencing homelessness, the risk has been even greater. People living outside have experienced extreme heat, which is defined as temperatures above 90 degrees. In July, Westminster recorded 16 days of extreme heat. That's more than half the month. And during July's extreme heat, dozens of Westminster's unhoused residents were abated, that is, forced by the city's police and park rangers to pack up and move from one part of the city to, well, another part of the city. After today, Westminster's forecast calls for many more days of extreme heat. Exposure to these temperatures can cause a variety of health problems, especially for sensitive groups like older adults, people with chronic diseases, pregnant women, young children, and people experiencing homelessness. Extreme heat affects cardiovascular, respiratory, and nervous systems, and can cause heat stroke, dehydration, chronic kidney disease, and more. For people experiencing homelessness, seeking refuge from the scorching heat is not easy, because in general, homelessness resources and services are designed to keep people warm in the winter, not cool in the summer. We already have detailed numbers from the January point-in-time count of the unhoused whom we actually located. Adams and Jeffco, only behind Denver, ranked second and third respectively in the number of unhoused residents in the metro area. And the numbers show a 100% increase, a doubling in our homeless just in Adams County. Personally, I have encountered more than a dozen new and unhoused women and men in Westminster this summer within just a small time frame I do my street outreach. And that's in addition to the too many people I've encountered here in the past 3+ years. Many persons experiencing homelessness have chronic health conditions, high blood pressure, heart disease, diabetes, as well as mental health and substance use issues that put them at greater risk of illness or death when exposed to extreme heat. In this city, we now might have an infrastructure to get people to a warming center in the winter, but I haven't seen Westminster act seriously, compassionately about sheltering these vulnerable residents during our prolonged extreme heat. This summer, Denver proactively, compassionately opened 10 cooling stations at recreation centers that provided free access to anyone for ice, water, and couches for refuge from the heat. Denver also dispatched street outreach teams to direct persons experiencing homelessness to these cooling stations. You know, it might have been a stopgap measure, but it's one that even Westminster failed to provide. When winter temperatures dropped to dangerous lows, I stood before this council and asked for establishment of a warming center. A day later, one was created at the MAC. I later publicly thanked Parks and Recreation for its warming center actions. I also asked that the city consider preparing cooling centers for the summer. Never happened. Sadly, inhumanely, this council continues to choose to punish the homeless for being homeless rather than create thoughtful alternatives that can benefit and satisfy all Westminster residents. This majority council continues to, at best, callously demonstrate its disdain for this vulnerable population. And at worst, you trot out your fake continuum of compassion phrase to the public to use as cover for your indifference and condescension. And don't think that just because you were told 23 people have housing vouchers, that means they get housing. The system doesn't work that way. So come out from under that cover of your so-called continuum of compassion. Create something positive, something meaningful, something beyond what you all have been doing and not doing for our unhoused residents. And you know, maybe the gentleman who often shows up here at these council meetings to cite scripture and pray for this council, and as some of you up on your dais bow your heads and say amen, maybe those words and prayers won't continue to be merely dust in the wind when it comes to caring for our unhoused people who are residents. Thank you.
Thank you.
The next speaker is Sarah Harmon.
Welcome. Thank you very much. I appreciate your time here. My name is Sarah Harmon. I am the Senior Vice President of Real Estate for Urban Land Conservancy. And we had not been included in the discussion about the repurchase option execution. So I thought this might be the one time I'm able to speak with you about that. If that's not inappropriate, may I continue? Okay, thank you. So the last 18 months since there's been substantial staff turnover, I've experienced pretty much the same experience I had here this evening. Very minimal engagement in the discussion regarding the partnership into which we entered with Westminster. So I, one, want to completely respect and appreciate your execution of the repurchase. I understand, and I want nothing more than to make those 12 residents whole. What makes me weep and be unable to remain silent is where we hear things said into public record that do not align with facts. And so, with respect, I would like to mention a few of those. I sought to return the yards and driveways and walkways, what we called and surveyed as Parcel A. I attempted to return that property using a quitclaim deed, which means a free transfer of real estate, in July 2021. So when I hear up here that my organization has done nothing, my jaw drops. And it makes me sad because I don't know what the internal conversation has been over the last 18 months because we've been very little engaged in it. Chase Evans was a wonderful partner, and at his departure, that's when we had a fracture of two-way communication. July 2021 was not the only time we sought to return Parcel A to the residents. We had multiple efforts to listen to their desires. We installed a fence that they said they needed. We worked to try to help educate on the operations and resources available to small HOAs when we learned that a number of functions had been delivered to them over that 12 years of Westminster's ownership. We didn't come into this position knowing all of the things that they had gotten from their relationship with Westminster while Westminster owned the property. So we had a very uncomfortable peeling of the onion in learning those facts. So there is something the residents refer to as the ghost meter. Our understanding is it's an irrigation water meter. That has been a point of contention. I've offered to pay that bill off at a number of times. We just never seem to make, without ULC and Westminster staff working hand in hand, we found that whichever group was not in the conversation became the bad guy in the swirl of discussion. So I want to acknowledge and respect and appreciate the times in which we were able to work together. I think it is important to be of record that we did not receive several extensions. We received one extension for 12 months during the height of COVID lockdown. What we were given to originally develop the property was a 5-year time period. For a development like this, 5 years is often what it takes in the best of circumstances. Has it been 5 years? Yes. 2 of those years have been under pandemic circumstances, and we continue to have a market that suffers from the long tail of that. So we have financing conditions, banking, lending, much more difficult than we went into this agreement. ULC is not a vertical developer. We did partner with a home builder, and that home builder fell out after getting the entitlement process almost through to completion. So another note I would like to make that is in city records is the fact that our partner, in conjunction with us, followed through almost the entire entitlement process. We were that close to getting building permits. And that's when the wheels fell off because we were unable to also backfill our gap financer. So thank you for your time. I see I've overstayed, and I'm happy for outreach if there's anything I said here that's worth follow-up. But we wish the best to the residents, to the property, and thank you all.
Thank you.
The next speaker is John Palmer.
Welcome.
Thank you. Good evening. I would like to thank the WIDA board for making the proper decision on the Holly Park property. It's been an eyesore and a problem for years. If you need the dollar to buy it back, I'll take it out of my pocket right now and give it to whoever so that we can get that accomplished. The one thing I would like to ask is moving forward with that property, however, whoever buys it, that they help offset the cost of the $1.4 million to upgrade Green Court that this council recently approved. I don't think that should be on the back of the city for another development or another housing group. They need to foot part or all of that bill. Next, I would like to thank whoever the powers that be that hopefully we can get the question regarding wards on the ballot. I know in the study session that seemed kind of iffy and questionable, but it sure would be nice if we could get that to the people and let the people make a choice without lots of encumbrance and lots of unnecessary language. Just basic language. Do you want wards? Yes or no? Details can be worked out down the road. With that, I'll thank you.
Thank you.
That's the last person I had signed up.
And we have a voicemail?
Yeah, we have one voicemail.
Good evening, Mayor, Mayor Pro Tem, and City Councilors. My name is David Carpenter. I live in the Countryside neighborhood. Calling to comment on your Councilor's Bill 37, the amendments to the Municipal Code on unsafe buildings. First, I want to thank Mayor McNally for appearing with Westminster Chamber CEO Juliette Abdel on today's City Updates show. That provided me the timely information to review this proposed ordinance. I have a concern in expanding the definition and expanding city powers regarding people's private property. While we know we've gone through some major cleanup issues in the city of unsafe buildings, we also need to respect people's private property rights, as these are one of the bedrock freedoms in our country. Specifically, Section 9.E.1.A.16 is problematic. It states, whenever any building or structure, because of obsolescence, dilapidated condition, deterioration, damage, inadequate exits, lack of sufficient fire-resistant construction, fire protection system, faulty electric wiring, gas connections, plumbing system, or heating apparatus, the accumulation trash, inadequate maintenance, or other cause is determined by the fire marshal or building inspector to be a fire hazard or threat to life and health. Then then the building official can declare this as an unsafe building with little or no recourse. I do like this, but the problem is the fire protection system. Most housing stock in the city was built prior to the current building code requirements of having an in-house fire protection system or sprinkler system. Right now, this seems like a building inspector could arbitrarily declare any unit built before the 90s or maybe even the 2000s as an unsafe building and start abatement and court proceedings on them. I'm sure this isn't the intent of council to do this, but council is only in charge of the city manager and not directly in charge of the staff who may go rogue. I know the fire chief, at least the previous fire chief, was very adamant that every house should have a sprinkler system, and it would be very costly and expensive if we were to use this to force people whose houses were built prior to the current code to be brought up to the current code, having the threat of having their house declared as an unsafe dwelling. So I just wanted to point that out, that seems like a major problem and maybe needs some work on that. Again, thank you for your time and your consideration and your service. Have a great day.
That's our last voicemail. And is there anyone in the audience that didn't know to sign up and wants to speak? Welcome.
Thank you. I was late, so I do know that I need to sign up. I was late, so I apologize. So I'm here to lift up our children and their education as school is beginning. So Heavenly Father, in Jesus Christ's precious and holy name, we lift up the city of Westminster and all its people to you. All creation for all time is yours. You've given us Westminster, and we want you here with us. The spiritual battle continues, but victory is already yours. You know our enemy's plans, and you've already accounted for all of them. Proverbs 16:4 states, "The Lord works out everything to its proper end, even the wicked for a day of disaster." You're a chess master. Any move our enemy makes, you will counter. There are no surprises to you. Tonight we want to lift up our kids and grandkids to you. Jeremiah 1:5 states, "Before I formed you in the womb, I knew you, and before you were born, I consecrated you." You know every one of these children. You knew them before their parents knew about them, and then you formed them. Make no mistake, they are yours. They are precious in your sight. Currently, we're preparing for another school year. The teachers, the administration, the staff, the bus drivers, and all those that work behind the scenes have been preparing for the return of the students, our kids. Educating children is important to you. In Proverbs 22:6 it states, "Train up a child in the way he should go, and even when he is old, he will not depart from it." It's an important charge to everyone that works with kids, responsibility that can't be taken lightly. Luke 12:48 states, "From everyone who has been given much, much will be demanded, and from the one who has been entrusted with much, much more will be asked." Our educators have a great responsibility. They've been entrusted with much. They are our kids, which you knew and then formed. So we also lift up to you all those that will have contact with our kids. Give them the patience they need to lead developing minds. Give them great understanding into each child, the best way to teach them, the best way to nurture their learning. Touch their hearts and place them in the correct place. The job they are taking on is not easy, it's demanding, but you have trained each one of them for the job they are doing. Let them find hope, strength, and perseverance in you. Let them lean on Isaiah 40:31, which states, "But those who hope in the Lord will renew their strength. They will soar on wings like eagles. They will run and not be weary. They will walk and not be faint." Hope, strength, and perseverance, because they are educating our kids. In your precious and holy name we pray. Amen. Thank you and have a nice.
Thank you, sir. Could you state your name for the record,
I'm sorry.
please?
It's Tom Lampo. I apologize. Have a nice night.
Anyone else? That brings us to City Manager's report.
Good evening, Mayor, Mayor Pro Tem, councilors. Some updates for the community. Next slide, please. So first of all, one of the things that the city will be undertaking this fall is a transition to the .gov extension or domain. The reason for that is that site, that domain, is hosted by DHS, Department of Homeland Security, provides us much better security than our current .us system. We'll be doing that in early September. We'll certainly notify the community of the official date in our August 17th Westy newsletter. What that means for the community and for the council is if people send you email at mfreitag@westminsterco.gov, it will come directly to me. But if they use my current email address, mfreitag@cityofwestminster.us, it still goes to my web or to my email address. It will come both ways. However, when I send something out, starting when that transition happens, it will leave with a .gov domain, and over time, everyone will get used to that .gov. So nothing that the community has to do, no loss of information. This is a standard effort across municipalities across the nation, and so we're just following suit and taking that opportunity. And so don't fear the transition. Really not something anybody has to worry about. The information will still flow both in and out of the city. And that will also change our website address. Will be westminsterco.gov. Okay? Next item, as mentioned during the pre-meeting, City Council and Jeffco School Board did a meet and greet this past Tuesday evening. Great event, as mentioned already by our council members. That was August 8th. A very informal meeting, but what was good about it was we talked about the Jeffco Public Schools closure process and what that means for our community. Got some updates from them, and so very beneficial in that regard. We also talked about continued partnerships with our school resource officers and certainly our drug awareness education, and shared with them some of the things that we heard from the district attorney in study session a week ago. And then also the coordination of some upcoming public works projects to make sure they're aware so they have minimal impact on their schools. And so a great meeting. We look forward to doing that, and we certainly hope that maybe we can do that with other school districts moving forward too. I thought it was quite beneficial. For the community, speaking of schools that will be closing, Sheridan Green Elementary is coming back to the city. And so if you remember back in June, we held an open house and took feedback from the community as far as what people would like to see it reutilized as or used as. And we've taken those ideas, kind of packaged them up in those things that the majority of the folks said they were looking for in the reuse. And we're going to come back on August 24th from 6 to 7:30 p.m. at Sheridan Green Elementary, which is 1095 Harlan Street, and share some of these concepts, and then again take more feedback, refinement from the community, from the neighborhood. If you want to learn anything more about this, if you go to our city website /Sheridan Green, it's a great landing page for all that information, and I encourage folks to check it out. Next slide, please. A Westy win, great news. Our police department continuing to do great things for our communities, but got some fitness equipment that was donated over to Mandalay Middle School. And so our school resource officers specifically moved weights and equipment from the city's swim and fitness center that will be replaced in the conversion, took those over to Mandalay Middle School. And then prior to this move, a team of Westminster police officers had spent time cleaning and painting the new fitness center at Mandalay Middle School in their school colors, and they put a big M on the painted or on the wall. And so great effort by our police department again, engaging the community and specifically our youngsters. Next slide. Some things to know, this Wednesday, 6 to 8 p.m. Is the 21st birthday celebration for Christopher Fields. I see the namesake of those Christopher Fields sitting in the audience tonight. Nice to see former city manager Bill Christopher. But again, that's at Christopher Fields, Wednesday, 6 to 8 p.m. Special permits and license board meeting Wednesday, August 16th, 7 to 8:30 p.m. That's in City Hall Council chambers. Neighborhood Nights, extremely popular program throughout the summer, nicely executed and hugely attended. The next one is this Friday, August 18th, 6:30 to 8:30 p.m. At Irving Street Library, and we certainly appreciate our PR&L team for making those a reality, and then all the other pieces of the city team that have made them even that much more special. City Council outreach goes this Saturday, Coffee with Residents at Covenant Village. It's 9:30 to 11 a.m., and so they're going to be touching base with that group. And then our next meeting here is City Council study session, Monday, August 21st, 6:30 p.m. Here in Council Chambers. Next slide. No information only items this evening. Next slide. And as always, the city certainly wants to be accessible, responsive, transparent, and accountable. If you want to reach out and contact the city, you can certainly call the number that's listed on the screen, 658-2006. That rings in my office. And then email me at mfreitag@cityofwestminster.us. And as always, you can follow us on X. You can like us on Facebook. You can check us out on Instagram, or you can ring our bell at next door. Pending any questions, that's all I have this evening.
Any questions? Mayor Pro Tem.
Thank you for your presentation. My question is actually about one of the public comment. Could we do extra enforcement on independence to try to counteract and see what we see with our police department?
Absolutely. I took it as a note, and I'll talk to Chief Halbert tomorrow.
Thank you very much.
That brings us to City Council comments. Councilor Seymour.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. If you would all indulge me with a little story that does have an end to it. Many years ago, I won't say how many, I had the great opportunity to have some great mentors as I was brought into management in both the restaurant industry and then later in the insurance industry. And a couple things that I learned, thankfully early on, was you manage things and you lead people. Very important. I was taught a lesson not to send out a memo. Yeah, this was on paper, not an email in those days. Pick up the phone, call somebody, have coffee, talk to them. And then also, you praise people in public, and then you have those coaching conversations in private. So those are some of the foundational things that I really look at too. And all of us have been in that odd moment when we're out at a retail or at a restaurant, and a manager who's probably under a great deal more stress than they need to be has decided to take that out on an employee in front of customers. We all get that odd kind of feeling, but it's not our place to step in. Well, this is where that odd feeling came over me, and I failed to step in. So this is our first meeting since our last city council meeting, where my colleague, Councilor Baker, made a decision to call one of the council's employees a liar. I will not make a judgment on that, but I will in fact and judge my lack of character for not saying anything that night. I want to thank Councilor Azadi for making a comment. But whether I was stunned, calloused, don't know. But I want to make a public apology to our city manager for not acting on my character. So my apologies. That's all, Mayor.
I don't know who was first. Councilor Namella?
I just also wanted to follow up on a couple of the public comments as well. Definitely, I know Independence Drive, this is not the first time we have heard of speeding issues, and I know that the crosswalk there with the signal is probably one of our mitigation efforts, but I'm still a fan of looking at, since we don't have people behaving, more stringent actions like speed tables or cushions or whatever it takes to make them go slower. So I'd love to hear what we're able and willing to do. I also am curious to know what it would take to get a cooling station established, similar to what we were doing with the freezes and helping people out with warming. So I think it would be helpful to understand what's available in the Jefferson County side or in Adams County or either county doing anything, and is there any help or any assistance that the counties can provide with any of these warming or cooling stations, and if they're providing anything in Westminster, and if not, if there's a location. I know there's maybe some potential as we talk a little bit later with some of our post-meeting items, but I'd love to just know what our options are and what the cost might be.
Mayor Pro Tem.
That dovetails very well into what I would like to speak about. I had additionally written down the same thing. We heard tonight from one of the speakers about Denver and what they're doing. I think it's important for the public to understand that Denver is a county. Denver has different resources. We rely on our partners in Jefferson County and Adams County. We have seen that they have not been able to fill the gap with homelessness, and that's where this council has stepped in. I think that dovetails well into my general comments about I think it is hard to hear the same folks come and what I would say spank the council in what they see as the majority. This council is the most diverse council that I've sat on, and we oftentimes share thoughts that with people who are very differently thought processed than we are. I would look to, if you really want to see that, look to our last meeting when we had a 4-3 vote. The most diverse vote, shocking vote, frankly, that I've seen since I've been on council. And it's because you have 7 people who are trying to do their best for this community. When you look at what we've tried to do in homelessness, we're trying to do something. It is something that is not typically the role of a municipal government like Westminster, but I would agree that if we could look at something for the cooling stations, that would be great. But I certainly would like to know what the counties are doing, because at the end of the day, that's their responsibility, and we are paying tax dollars to those counties to accommodate those needs. But like much of the continuum of care that we have established, we're trying to figure out how we solve a problem that, quite frankly, probably will never totally be solved. But I certainly think it's worth spending time, which is why this council has put effort behind it. I've thought a lot about recently about what folks do with the problems. People are often quick to say what isn't being done and what's not being done and what's not being done, but where's the solution that is being provided? We hear that on council, and so I wanted to bring an ask to the city manager, the staff, and this council when we look at budget. We keep hearing about an arbitrary cut by one of our council members, that 10%, and I've always been adamant against doing some sort of arbitrary cut. So I would like us to think about doing 2 different things. One, what would be the top 5 things that would be affected as far as city services if you did an arbitrary cut of, say, 10%? I feel like that would be an easy thing for staff to come back with and say, this is what that's going to impact city services. And at the end of the day, everything that we do should be gauged in a way of, how is this going to impact the residents? Because at the end of the day, that's what's important to the people who elected us and put us here. Additionally, and we had a robust conversation during our budget retreat around water rates. And I know that I don't think anybody was super ecstatic to raise water rates and say we would go with the 4.5%. But I additionally would like to understand if we did something less and we didn't approve the 4.5% and say we did something half of that, what exactly would that do to that part of the organization? I think it is important for us to understand that so that we can properly let the public know how those kind of decisions would impact them before we approve the budget. So my ask would be, and I don't know how much time that would take, so that's why I'm putting it out to the whole council, and obviously if we take direction, staff would come back, because I imagine it may take more than 3 hours of work, but I think it is work that would be worthwhile. And it would settle some of the conversation and say disagreement that's starting to bubble up in the community. And I think it's important for our community to be comfortable with what we're doing, services we're providing, and how we're paying for them.
Councillor Zadi?
Thank you, Mayor. I just wanted to state for anyone listening, this is a very diverse council, but the concept that we cannot do anything about the homelessness issue is not true, because I believe that all levels of government, municipal, state, federal, county, should be working on this together, doing everything that we can together, using all of our resources to figure out this issue, because homelessness is intersectional with a lot of other issues that are prevalent in our community, and we should be doing much more. We have a quality of life strategic objective in our strategic plan, and we should be following that. And I think Alan he always has great points on this, and many others do as well. It's a big issue, and we can't just move them around. We have to actually figure out more solutions. So some of the items that I'm compiling, City Manager, I'm making a list for budget questions to give you guys enough time so we can bring that back. So thank you.
Mayor Pro Tem?
I agree with the statement just made by Councillor Zadi, but I'll go back to my point. What is the solution? You are a member of this body, and so I look forward to hearing what your solutions are to help us add on to the things that we're already doing that will make that situation better for the city of Westminster and the residents who live here.
Anyone else? I just want to say that, Councillor Seymour, thank you for bringing up tonight what happened at our last council meeting. I think when it all happens up here, there's many times I go home and go, what just happened? And especially when we're the employers of 3 members that come to these meetings, and one of them is called a liar, it just is not correct. And City Manager Freitag, I apologize for not having wits end to say something, but I probably would have ranted and raved at that point in time, which probably wouldn't have been appropriate either. But it was wrong in the manner that it was done, and I apologize that it happened and I didn't say something or call for a break or whatever I should have done at that point in time. Anyone else? That brings us to consent agenda, and we have item A requested to take off of the consent agenda. Do we need a motion to pull it?
No, Mayor. The rules provide that any council member can identify an item to be removed from the consent agenda. So I would just recommend that whatever the motion be, that it be for the balance of the consent agenda, and then we'll revisit item A.
We need a motion for items 8, B and C. Mayor Pro Tem?
Thank you, Mayor. I move to adopt consent agenda items 8B through 8C.
Councillor Emmons?
Second.
It's been moved and seconded to approve motion items 8, B, and C. Is there any further discussion? Roll call, please.
Councillor Baker.
Yes.
Mayor Pro Tem Demott.
Yes.
Councillor Emmons.
Yes.
Councillor Azadi.
Yes.
Mayor McNally.
Yes.
Councillor Nermella.
Yes.
And Councillor Seymour.
Yes.
The motion passes on a 7-0 vote.
That takes us back to item 8A. Is there a motion? Mayor Pro Tem?
Thank you, Mayor. I move to authorize the city manager to execute an agreement for continuing disclosure counsel with Kutek Rock LLP for a fee not to exceed $57,500 in connection with the issuance of tax-exempt certificates of participation by the city of Westminster for financing a replacement municipal court facility.
Councillor Emmons?
Second.
It's been moved and seconded to pass motion 8A. Is there any further discussion? Councillor Baker?
Thank you, Mayor. I appeal to my colleagues not to use certificates of participation to move the building of the courthouse forward. The common sense reality of certificates of participation is that they are long-term public debt. If not empowered by the voters of Westminster, engaging in long-term debt violates the spirit and intent of the Colorado Constitution, something we have all sworn to uphold. COPs, COPs, are a dishonest use of the discretion council has. Are COP certificates of really participation legal? Yes. Of the use has been validated by our legal system with basically precise, adjudicated arguments. However, I do not want this council to use a really financial tool that is legal but dishonest. If Westminster wishes to borrow money, there are other financial tools we can use. We have and used other proven courses of action to pay for government projects. In just the last city election, the city asked the voters and was given permission by the voters to issue bonds for open space improvements. Are there huge benefits to be gained of the using COPs? No. Well, the rates would be about the same as bonds. And, okay, the timelines still aim for 2026. Are there huge benefits to be gained by really following the spirit and the intent of, the Colorado Constitution and really having a vote on the bond? Yes. A big benefit would be having the public take part in the discussion about the new courthouse. Currently, I doubt more than a handful of residents even know of this courthouse plan. And while of the council might really seem to see a need for a new courthouse, do the residents share that opinion? How could we know? We've never asked them. This new courthouse has been done in the dark. It's flown under the radar. It's slipped by in the middle of the night. There have been no public conversations about the location for a new courthouse. Courthouse has planned it next to the existing courthouse, a really location that is inconvenient for most of the city. Why would we build a public building inconvenient for most of our residents? And while I think the cost is excessive, I'm sure, the public would like to add their opinion. But the biggest benefit of all by holding a bond election is that an election guarantees the citizens their right to determine the long-term debt of the city. Remember, the power to accept or of the reject debt is a right of the people that pay the taxes. And the costs of not having an election are enormous. City council using COPs removes our residents and voters from, the courthouse building of the discussion. And that really discussion includes the conversation about the need, the location, and the cost. Using COPs neutralizes the voters. I do not want that to happen. And while using COPs is legal, it is wrong to take that really decision from our voters. Debt is an onerous burden that extends far into the future. It is proper to uphold the spirit and the intent of the Colorado Constitution that entrusts that power to debt only to the voters. It is the honest thing to do. And specifically, I ask my fellow colleagues how using the COPs, the certificates of participation, follows the intent and spirit of the Colorado Constitution. Thank you, Mayor.
Councilor Seymour?
Thank you, Madam Mayor. Just a few thoughts to dispute my colleagues' assertions. This entire process has been public, just as all of our meetings are public. I see this as a safety issue for our staff. For those of us who have made many visits to the courthouse and behind the scenes, it is not a safe or healthy place to work. And while council does not have direct purvey over staff, the city manager does, it is our imperative to give him the tools to keep his staff safe, healthy, and productive. Nor is it a safe place for those people who have to be held there. And that is also a critical issue. And it is a terrible place to maintain safety for our officers who staff the court. The courthouse is well known and has been since its inception as a prior city hall in 1961, I believe. And then after that, as it was converted and turned into the municipal court building, it is well known throughout the city for those people who have the need to utilize it. But many of those people need public transportation. It is located right on 36 and Federal, both major public transportation thoroughfares. So I find that is a critical issue too. And as my colleague mentioned, it is certificates of participation are legal. That is a fact. It has been adjudicated here in Colorado. And I believe my colleague brought this up one point when he was running for House District in a very contentious issue that was splitting people across our country and still does. His point was, the Supreme Court has ruled on this. It is the law. So we will be following the law, and one of the tools that is available to us to bring the municipal court to fruition after years of neglect. Thank you.
Councilor Numella?
I also wanted to respond to Councilor Baker. I too, similar to Councilor Seymour, do not view or consider this funding source as dishonest. It is a viable and legal tool that we have used in the past and currently use to provide the fundamental services for the community. That's the role of government to in our responsibility to make sure that we have safe conditions for not only our employees but our residents who pass through our facilities. And you know, we do still have to make decisions on whether we can carry this debt service, and that decision is made through the balancing of our budget. And you know, for residents being able to make a decision on the need for a new facility, you know, they do hire, not hire us, they do vote for us as their representatives, and we are given as much information as possible to feed into the decision to either rehabilitate facilities like Swim and Fitness Center or to build new facilities. And so that's part of our decision-making opportunity and responsibility. And so I appreciate that we have a diversity of funding tools. We can't bond for everything in the community that we need, and so that's why I will continue to be in support of using COPs for this effort.
Mayor Pro Tem?
Thank you, Mayor. I have to say, it must be an election year, because I read your article in Complete Colorado, Councilor Baker, and in that article, you pushed the idea of using Sheridan Green, and you pushed the idea of how much it would cost, and I have to imagine you're making some wild assumptions about that cost because you don't really know what it would cost. But tonight here, you talked about access. One of the primary reasons that we're staying on the campus where we're at is access. The bus access to the current campus is actually part of the reason that we were told that's the right place for the court to remain. One of the most fundamental things that government provides to its residents is access to justice. So one of the number one things that I've heard since even before I was on council was that we needed to replace the municipal court. I've heard it from 3 different municipal judges now that this is a vital project, so I find it hard to believe that this was somehow under the covers, because it's been talked about in every single election since I've been involved in this realm for the last decade. So I don't understand that angle at all. What I will say is, like we've heard it here tonight, this is a legal tool for us to use. Therefore, it's a good tool for us to use, and it's a proper tool for us to use. And staff has come forward with a way that councils for the last decade have asked, or probably more, how are we going to replace the court? We now have a plan. So I'm actually very excited to see we're actually continuing to make steps towards a new courthouse that's going to provide safety for our employees and the people who visit the court. The other thing that I will say, I visited the court with my son and one of his friends that was there on a hearing. The environment there for somebody to have a private conversation with the DA or their attorney doesn't exist, because we don't have the room. This is the right project for so many different reasons that I've heard over time, that I think it's unfortunate that this has turned into some sort of political crusade, because this is something that we need to deliver to our residents. Because again, I'll reiterate, it's about access to justice, and that's safe access to justice for all the people who live in Westminster.
Councilor Azadi?
Thank you, Mayor. I just wanted to reinforce what Mayor Pro Tem just said, in case folks didn't hear this, because it's important to understand. Councilor Baker, you've asked us many times and emailing us, and you're asking us basically to use Sheridan Green to repurpose the building for that was the school to be the courthouse. And I can tell you that the residents of that neighborhood will never allow that to happen. I will never allow that to happen. And I think I speak for a lot of people to say we have made the decision, we need to move on, and that school will not be used for a courthouse. Thank you.
Councilor Emmons?
Thank you. Not to belabor all the points that my colleagues have said, Councilor Baker, if this doesn't match your idea of a discussion, I don't know what does. The point that I want to make is that we're calling the kettle black here, because a couple study sessions ago, you had made a point that you said that you didn't need to go to the community and get input because you were a council member elected by the people to make decisions, and that's what we are doing tonight.
Having worked at municipal bond homes, they are under heavily SEC rules. They can't do things and sell things that are illegal. So COPs are legal for us to use. And I support this decision. We talked about the courthouse just before I was leaving in 2013. So it has been well discussed. These meetings are public. They are televised. We share it when we're on live feeds with the chamber. It is not a secret. So I will be supporting. With that, roll call, please.
Mayor Pro Tem DeMott. Councilor Emmons.
Yes.
Councilor Azadi.
Yes.
Mayor McNally.
Yes.
Councilor Nermella.
Yes.
Councilor Seymour.
Yes.
And Councilor Baker.
No.
The motion passes on a 6-1 vote.
That brings us to first reading of Councilor's Bill number 37. Mayor Pro Tem?
38. I move to pass Council Bill number 37 on first reading to amend the section 11-9-2E of Westminster Municipal Code concerning unsafe buildings, structures, and equipment.
Councilor Emmons?
Second.
It's been moved and seconded to pass Councilors, Bill number 37. Is there any further discussion? Mayor Pro Tem.
We had a caller that talked about the potential of this being used to do things like force sprinklers into current residents. If it's my recollection, like sprinkler code, that's for new build. Is there any possibility that this action could be used in the way that the concerned citizen called in about?
I believe we have both Mr. Otzelberger and Mr. Graham in the audience who helped craft these provisions, and I would ask if they could address the question.
Welcome.
Next to me, a very intelligent individual, Greg Graham, our Deputy City Attorney. I might just defer to Greg.
Sure. Mayor, Council, to answer your question, Mayor Pro Tem, no, you're right. Sprinklers are for new build. It would actually be illegal to use a prior building code and require, or an existing building code to make current buildings come up to code, unless there's a certain amount of work that's actually being done. So if there's work being done on a property, then yes, you can require the new building code or the current building code. But for properties that are existing, unless there's a certain amount of work that's being done, and sprinklers involve more than just adding some sprinklers. The structural issues, there's water pressure issues that we have in certain parts of the city right now, where we have issues with water pressure that make it difficult to sprinkler reused buildings. So it would generally be, in most instances, it wouldn't be legal for us to require a building unless it were at the point where it actually needed a lot of work, a lot of permits to come up to code. But sprinklering that's even beyond that.
Thank you. And just to also further clarify, so if I hear you right, that ability already exists. So that's already something that potentially could be done in certain circumstances. That's not none of that, what you just described, is even being changed with the action we're taking here tonight.
That's correct, Mayor Pro Tem. We're not adding any additional ability. Primarily this is a code cleanup to make it clearer. Much of the authority that we have been discussing through this process is already available to the building official. And so what we're doing is just making it more clear in the building code. But you're correct. What is existing in the building code isn't really changing.
Great. Well, with that, I'll thank you for all your work, because I know this is important, and that clarity, I think, allows us to address some issues that have been front of mind over the last 12 to 18 months. So I appreciate you answering the question.
Sure.
Councilor Newmiller?
Oh, Mr. Graham, just real quick. I just thought it would be helpful for you to clarify when you say a lot of work would need to be done on a property, on a building. Are you referencing non-conformance and the requirement to conform with the code if it's more than 50% of the value of the property that needs to be rehabilitated? Is
that would be an instance, but there are also certain types of building permits. So if you're completely changing out your HVAC system, you have to bring that up to code. Interior finishes have to be brought up to code. If you're gutting the interior of a building or a residence, for example, generally that has to be brought up to the current code. So it's not necessarily a situation where you have a legal non-conforming use, where if 50% or more of it is destroyed, or there's that much work that needs to go into it. It's not necessarily that. In those instances, absolutely, you'd have to bring that property up to code. But there are other instances where, tenant finish on an old building, you'd have to bring that up to code to the extent that you could, depending on the nature of the rest of the building.
Okay, thank you for clarifying that.
You're welcome.
See no other questions, roll call, please.
Counselor Emmons.
Yes.
Counselor Azadi.
Yes.
Mayor McNally.
Yes.
Counselor Nermella.
Yes.
Counselor Seymour.
Yes.
Counselor Baker.
Yes.
And Mayor Pro Tem Demott.
Yes.
The motion passes on a 7-0 vote.
That brings us to Councilor's Bill number 38. Mayor Pro Tem.
Thank you, Mayor. Move to approve Council Bill number 38 on first reading, authorizing the issuance of tax exempt certificate of participations, Series 2023 in par amount not to exceed 37.1 million for construction of a replacement municipal court facility and related COP issuance costs.
Councilor Emmons.
Second.
It's been moved and seconded to pass Councilor's Bill number 38. Is there any further discussion? Councilor Baker.
Yes, I first have a question. How many bids have we received on this bond issuance? And is this the low bidder? I didn't see anything in the packet.
Yeah, Mayor Pro Tem Counselor, I'd ask Chief Financial Officer Dorr to come forth and answer any of the questions.
Welcome.
Thank you, Mayor, Mayor Pro Tem and Councilors. Thank you, Manager Freitag. My name is Larry Dorr, Deputy City Manager and Chief Financial Officer. And just to catch up those members here in the audience tonight or viewing at home or watching the recording of this meeting, I'd like to provide just a little bit of context from the staff memo on this subject so that folks can feel oriented. The City Council has visited our city's municipal court on November 29th of last year and then received a building review on December 12th of last year and a financial plan on May 1st. Staff has brought back the next step in the financial plan and process. The city will issue certificates of participation plus use capital on hand in its capital improvement and preservation plan of $6 million in order to complete the construction of the project. The question, if I could expand on it, just for context to those members in the audience, is have there been bids received? What's the competitive environment, for the COPs? That's yet to come, and I'll just describe that as was the case in the city's previous 14 issues of certificates of participation. This will be what's commonly known as a negotiated sale, and that is that two underwriters who competed against each other to market these certificates of participation will begin to get indications of interest from their various clients and investors on what the interest rate and what the bids for those certificates will be. And at that time, the city's independent municipal advisor will advise the city manager and our financial team on the reasonableness and competitive nature of those proposed bids, and the city manager under this councilor's bill will have the authority to accept those bids at that time, in that moment, at the time of the marketing of the certificates of participation. This is very common, as I say, has been done in the city's previous issuances, and so the city has not yet received those bids, but as long as those bids are within the parameters of the ordinance before you here tonight, the city manager will have the authority to close and effectuate the borrowing and the next steps in the issuance process. Okay.
Thank you. That is my other question. I do have some comments, though, when we get to that part.
Thank you, Mayor.
Thank you. There's no more questions? Ready for the vote?
If this council wishes to build a new courthouse without voter approval, we've got the money on hand. Page 20 of the 2022 Annual Comprehensive Report shows $43 million of unassigned money. I'm sure y'all remember our last study session where I thought I was focusing on the wins of this city, and one of them being we have over $300 million in cash and investments. We've got all the cash we need to build this courthouse. And then look at the benefits if we use our own cash. We could obviously save $57,500 in lawyer fees. We could save $500,000 in bond fees. once we sign the lease for the property under the courthouse, okay, and the bonds are issued, we start paying interest right then, even though we don't have the money. The money is in the hands of the trustee, and the trustee only issues that money to the city when we deliver the invoices that need to be paid. Well, if we issue the bonds in October or the first part in November, and remember, we're self-funding $6 million of this purchase, we won't need that money until the middle or late part of 2024. A year's worth of interest at 5% on $37 million is $1.8 million, which we'd save by using our own cash. I think that's a tremendous savings. So if our hearts are set of it and we don't want the voters to really participate in the decision process, let's just use our own saved money.
Do we have somebody that we can ask and dispel that we don't have this money to just use?
Mayor, I'd ask Chief Financial Officer Dorr to return, but I think the main message here is that, you know, we have reserve funds. We have limits that we've set on those reserve funds that we have to maintain for that rainy day, for that crazy thing that happens. And so there's a reason why cities sit on sums of money so that if something does go wrong, we've got something to tap into. And I'll let Chief Financial Officer Dorr expand on that as appropriate.
Thank you, Manager Freitag. You said it very well and simple enough. I won't add to that, sir. These are our general reserves for all kinds of emergencies, which our city has experienced in the past, and that has given great comfort and security in providing services. The other thing I wish to add for the record, Mayor, thank you for the opportunity, is that when the COPs are funded, the proceeds from those funds will immediately earn interest, and the interest earnings thereon will be used to pay the interest that accrues on the certificates of participation until all of those funds have been dispersed for all of the construction activities that happen. And in fact, in this current environment of what's called an inverted yield curve, which I won't go to the details of, we may earn as much or even more interest on the proceeds that are deposited and held for future construction costs that might be paid on the certificates. But that's yet to be seen until that happens. But rest assured, the construction proceeds will earn interest every single day, beginning day one.
Thank you.
Okay? Thank you.
Mayor Pro Tem?
You might not want to go anywhere. You talked about recent history, so to maybe just give some context around what we were able to avoid at a high level, or how much of that we dipped into, because I know we dipped into it during COVID, and thank goodness that prior councils, including Mayor McNally under her leadership, that the city did that after a big shortfall in the 2008 downturn. Maybe you could at least just give some context so the public understands, because that was a lifesaver for the city organization that we had those reserves.
Thank you, Mayor Pro Tem. Yes, during 2020, during the pandemic, our city began using as much as $3 million of those reserves per month, and in fact accrued usage of those reserves of nearly $10 million before things began to reopen and the economy began to improve in Westminster and around the world. So thankfully those reserves allowed us to continue to maintain primary services and continue to recruit public safety personnel to maintain our ranks and maintain safety and transportation and all the things that we do as a city. So yes, those reserves were very important in those two periods and in others prior there too.
Great, thank you.
Roll call, please.
Councillor Azadi.
Yes.
Mayor McNally.
Yes.
Councillor Normella.
Yes.
Councillor Seymour.
Yes.
Councillor Baker.
No.
Mayor Pro Tem DeMott.
Yes.
And Councillor Emmons.
Yes.
The motion passes on a 6-1 vote.
That brings us to Councilor's Bill number 39. Mayor Pro Tem?
Thank you, Mayor. I move to pass Council Bill number 39 on first reading, placing questions on the November 2023 coordinated election ballot to amend the charter and direct the city clerk to certify the ballot language to designated election officials for Adams and Jefferson counties.
Counselor Emmons?
Second.
It's been moved and seconded to pass Councilor's Bill number 39. Is there any further discussion? Roll call, please.
Mayor McNally,
Yes.
Councilor Nermella,
Yes.
Councilor Seymour,
Yes.
Councilor Baker,
Yes.
Mayor Pro Tem Demott,
Yes.
Councilor Emmons,
Yes.
and Councilor Azadi.
Yes.
The motion passes on a 7-0 vote.
That brings us to item C2, resolution for number 24. Mayor Pro Tem?
Thank you, Mayor. I move to adopt resolution number 24, setting a ballot question regarding wards.
Counselor Emmons?
Second.
Go ahead.
I do have a comment on this. So I have to agree with the public speaker tonight that I do think that the people want a very plain question on wards. I wish the question last election was much plainer than it ended up being, but that's not what the majority wanted at that time, and some of us wanted to at least ask the question. So I'm glad that, and I appreciate staff's work to come up with a very simple ballot question that we could legally put on, because I know there was a lot of conversation around how exactly that was done, and so they turned that around really quickly, and I'm pleased to see this on our agenda tonight.
Counselor Baker?
My really disappointment, because I am completely in favor of wards, but my disappointment is this doesn't give the voters anything tangible to consider. It's still way too gauzy and nebulous and flaky. It can't make up its mind if it wants to have all council members voted from a ward, or if there should be at-large council members. It doesn't even put a number on how many council members we should have. Doesn't put a number on how many wards we should have. It's just this question that I don't think will help this council move the questions of wards forward. Thank you.
Seeing no other conversation, roll call, please.
Councilor Nermella,
Yes.
Councilor Seymour,
Yes.
Councilor Baker,
No.
Mayor Pro Tem Demott,
Yes.
Councilor Emmons,
Yes.
Councilor Azadi,
Yes.
and Mayor McNally.
Yes.
The motion passes on a 6-1 vote.
That brings us to resolution 25. Mayor Pro Tem, sorry.
Thank you, Mayor. I move to adopt resolution number 25, calling for participation in November 7, 2023 coordinated election with Adams and Jefferson counties.
Counselor Emmons?
Second.
It's been moved and seconded to adopt resolution number 25. Is there any further discussion? Roll call, please.
Councilor Seymour,
Yes.
Councilor Baker,
Yes.
Mayor Pro Tem Demott,
Yes.
Councilor Emmons,
Yes.
Councilor Azadi,
Yes.
Mayor McNally,
Yes.
and Councilor Nermella.
Yes.
The motion passes on a 7-0 vote.
It is 9:21, and we will now adjourn this meeting and move into post-meeting, where we have one post-meeting presentation, followed by an executive session. We are adjourned, but we'll take a 5 to 7 minute break and get into that room.
our post-meeting presentation. City Manager?
Yes, Madam Mayor. So Mayor Pro Tem and councilors, the question of what happens with the portion of the MAC moving forward has been front and center for me since I got here, something that people were talking about last fall. I think we have proposed perhaps a little change in venue, a little different avenue based upon some costs. And so I'm going to turn it over to Parks Rec and Library Director Tomas Herrera-Mischler to kind of bring us up to speed as to where we're currently at and ask for a little bit of guidance from you all. Okay, so Tomas, please.
Great, thank you, Mayor Pro Tem and councilors. Thank you for your time. We look forward to this presentation. I'm Tomas Herrera-Mischler, Director of Parks, Recreation, and Libraries for the City of Westminster, and I'm joined this evening by Tim Lockermeyer, who is Recreation Services Manager, and he'll be assisting with this presentation. We're here to present the planning work that's been undertaken so far for the Gymnastics Center, which is located at the MAC in historic Westminster. The most recent IGA, which we signed with Highland Hills Recreation District in 2022, provides for the transfer of this space once the premises are vacated, and it'll be to full city ownership, so 100% city ownership. This is scheduled to take place over the next few weeks. So when the city will become the sole owner of the former gymnastics center space. Next slide, please. So this change in ownership and use presents a real opportunity to repurpose this space to meet a community need or needs, plural. Staff has explored a variety of options, and we're presenting two potential options for the space. One is a black box theater or multi-use space with a focus on indoor pickleball. So black box theater or pickleball. Regardless of the use selected, we're going to reserve this space for use as a temporary shelter during extreme weather events or emergencies. This additional space will allow the opportunity to try something new in historic Westminster and reinvigorate the MAC and its surrounding community. Tim?
Yeah, if you can go to the next slide, please. So again, my name is Tim Lockerman. I'm the Recreation Services Manager, and we have a few slides up here or pictures, so I'm just going to kind of give you a quick overview if you haven't visited that space, what it looks like. So again, Highland Hills currently operates a gymnastics center in the separate space, but that space is attached to the MAC by a single wall. It's about 12,000 square feet. Is what this standalone gymnastics space, and as you can see in the one picture on the right, it's mainly used as a large gymnastics area. There is a practice studio and two other classrooms on the main level. There's a second level that has another classroom, another multi-purpose space, and then a viewing deck with some bleachers in that area. There are bathrooms located throughout the facility, both on the upper level and the lower level. Fortunately, there's an elevator already installed for both levels, and then it has two separate entrances coming into the space. So that's just kind of a quick overview of what it holds.
Next slide, please. We worked with the firm of Anderson Hollis Architects to undertake a feasibility study, creating a black box theater in the gymnastics space, and you can see a rendering of what that exterior would look like. Work included an estimate for the design and construction costs for this project that came in at approximately $12.9 million. I'll point out that that includes complete reskinning of the structure and also I'll get to that in a minute. The city's art and culture master plan calls for more cultural arts and performances in the community. Operating a black box theater in the gymnastics space would certainly meet that goal. Black box theater is a simple, in theory, highly flexible performance space. The name black box usually indicates that it's got a flat floor and black walls around it, and it gives the appearance of any setting. So it's a very, very flexible theatrical space. Makes it easier for the audience to feel part of the performance. And the space is used to create a flexible stage and a lot of opportunity for audience interaction. It's a simple concept, but actually complicated by the expense of retrofitting a 45-year-old former grocery store and gymnastics center for public performances. Theatrical use of the space would require significant upgrades to the building's systems and exterior in order to support all of the theatrical lighting and the sound and all that equipment. It would require a significant upgrade to the electrical service, which is the original electrical service from when it was a grocery store. And it would require a new HVAC system, which then requires improvements to the roof and insulation. So a lot of, in addition to just the simple black box theater, which fits nicely in this space, there's a lot of additional sort of surrounding expenses in order to make this structure be able to support this use. Tim?
Next slide, please. So as Tomas mentioned, as we were looking at the option for the black box theater, we also were evaluating some other uses for this space, as well as something a little bit more economical. We continue to be successful in our ability to offer high quality recreation, wellness amenities, and trends that meet the needs of the community. This new space offers us a opportunity to expand and enhance recreation offerings as a lower cost alternative. In addition to providing some additional recreation services in historic Westminster, this flexible space would provide the city with the ability to deliver a safe space to those in need during extreme weather events, as was done in December of 2022. That actually took place at the MAC, and so that's why we would be utilizing this space right next door. This space would be designated as an emergency shelter as it relates to recreation planning and scheduling, ensuring its availability, particularly during winter months, should it be needed, and allowing a safe space located in the geographic area traditionally with the greatest need for sheltering in such events. On the left there, if you're not familiar, that's a picture of kind of what a pickleball court looks like. Pickleball is the fastest growing sport in America. It's a hybrid of tennis, badminton, and ping pong. The city already provides several pickleball opportunities, including programming, leagues, and drop-in at both City Park Recreation Center and Westview Recreation Center. Outdoor, we have some courts at Amherst Park and Countryside, as well as a new 6-court complex that's nearing completion at Mid-Bayou Municipal Court. All of the pickleball offerings are highly attended, and we continue to receive requests for more pickleball opportunities in Westminster. At each of the indoor locations, we average about 100 a day and continue to get more requests for additional space. Providing this new space would allow us to better meet such a high demand in the community, as well as provide an opportunity for expansion of recreational programming in historic Westminster. Converting the former gymnastic space into a multi-use facility with a focus on indoor pickleball does require some minor work. We estimate that we would need new flooring, painting, creating some type of access in between the two locations, as well as some equipment, and this would be approximately $450,000 from the work that we've done. Indoor pickleball and multi-use rooms would approximately cost about $150,000 a year to operate, but will also generate $150,000 in revenue to offset that.
Also point out that there's a real benefit to having pickleball indoors because they're notoriously loud, and it's also located in such a way that there's a lot of buffer between other uses and the rest of the mat. So there's a lot of benefits from that perspective as well. PRL's vision plan is an important consideration for the long-term use of this space. The vision plan is anticipated to be completed by the end of 2024. Staff recommends setting up a semi-permanent or temporary function in this space until the PRL vision plan is ready to implement, which is the proposed multi-use space with indoor pickleballs presented tonight. Funds are identified and available for the minor updates needed, creating a more flexible multi-use space with indoor pickleball and a variety of recreational programming, including a licensed preschool program, as well as to provide the opportunity to house future emergency shelters as needed. So we're happy to answer any questions that you may have at this time.
Okay. I was really excited initially when we were talking about the potential for this to have a theater component, because we're kind of one of the only cities in our first-tier suburban location where we don't have a significant theater or any theater, our cultural amenities are kind of lacking in infrastructure here. We do some great, we do the outdoor theater, but honestly, I'd like us to kind of grow up a little bit. So I was a little disappointed to see, an alternative use come in. Can you remind me what the original estimate was of the theater I don't know what to call it.
Yes, I believe it was $4.5 million when we spoke about it last time.
And so it rose pretty precipitously over a year to 12 point some odd million.
So, yeah, when you take into account the additional work that wasn't part of that original 4.4 million, for example, the exterior skinning of the building so that it looks more like a theater and creating outdoor courtyard space, also all of the upgrades to the building, that such as the new roof, new HVAC, and new electric, were, as they dug into the design of the structure and kind of realized that there was more that needed to be done in that 45-year-old building to get it up to the point where it could support the theatrical use in there.
So I'm hearing HVAC, electrical, and a new roof. Those to me seem like they would need to be done regardless of the use. So why is that not on the budget for pickleball?
Well, I guess I'll let
Yeah, I
Tim
can
answer
jump in
that.
real quick. So, great question. The way the gymnastics space is set up now, it's a wide open space, with overhead lighting and just some good airflow. That's one of the reasons we identified pickleball kind of as that, because that's similar to a gymnasium. So we, from the work that we've already done, we do not anticipate any need to update, any of those components or that infrastructure, because it'll function in a similar way, just a little bit different. Instead of gymnastics, it'll be pickleball. The capacity of the space will be, similar when they have large meets there. So we do not anticipate having to update any of that to run this type of operation out of there. We would look to update some lighting, put some LED lights in there. Obviously, I think those are a little bit old, but in general, the rest of the system would not need that. The bathrooms and the plumbing, as they are, and in the design work, would have had to be completely retrofitted and actually moved around. And then there's also and I don't know if you could see it in one of those pictures, but there's a large support beam that also would have to be moved and everything reworked for the theater to work. In the pickleball world, yeah, you can actually kind of see it right there, right about where that person is walking. There's a beam that goes up and down. That would not work for the theater, but the way the pickleball courts would be laid out, we can work around that and still get 3 courts in there.
That was a very expensive change.
I'm still not buying that we wouldn't need a new roof or to update the HVAC with these. And then the other question I have is the emergency shelter, the preschool, are those going to be located in this area with the pickleball? Because then I would also imagine that also might need some adjustment to the HVAC and to the electrical and the roof.
Yeah, and I can answer that. So the preschool would actually be on the other side of the MAC, where we would capture some of the existing space that's there and move it to some of this new space that we would have available here. Such things as cards, or there's a billiard room, those type of things that would maybe fit better over in that area. So the preschool would be on the separate side of the facility. The emergency shelter, we again, that's usually for a few days at a time, 3 days, 4 days, hopefully most. And so again, the infrastructure is there. Actually, the benefit to this is that there is showering facilities on that side of the facility. And one of the I would call it a little bit of a challenge that we had last year is that we had to close the entire facility in order to operate this shelter. The way this would work is the shelter could still take place on this side. It would be able to be separate entrance, there's separate showers, and then the MAC could still be open to the public while that was operating to not provide any conflict. So we see that as it's set up well for those 2 operations.
And so we won't be renting out the gymnastics side to, say, regular uses, like a church on Sunday, or to quinceañeras or that kind of thing, so that we're not risking having to cancel someone's really special event in order to accommodate the emergency sheltering. So it'll be really always available when it's needed.
So the emergency sheltering would have its own space.
Correct, yeah.
It would occupy some of the same space, but we would be, running city-only programming, and that's something that Tomas was referring to. We host events all, whether it's a business event, private event. So when a shelter need comes up, we usually only know that within a few days. So we prefer not to cancel somebody's, private event. This space would solely be used for, say some pickleball, fitness classes, things that we are able to just say, hey, it's not going to be available for this few days while we, operate a shelter. So again, it would be less impact on the public or the renter that would be using that space, if that makes sense.
Could we have a space for the shelter that is just that space so that it's not disrupting the other activities?
I'm not an expert in the shelter operation, but I know last year and the 2 times that we did it, once was at the MAC and once was at Countryside, you need a pretty decent footprint. And the amount of spacing that is required to house that, and then what we did last year is there's certain individuals that don't feel comfortable in the general population, and so we had to have them separated in separate rooms. And if there's families that come in that don't necessarily, again, want to be in that. So it may be difficult to find a standalone shelter that doesn't get utilized as much. This provides that flexibility to, again, program it, if that's 300 days out of the year, 340 days out of the year, whatever that is, but then as need, be able to quickly set it up for a shelter. I think the other benefit that would be is people would know that's where the shelter is. Last year, again, we had to move it between 2 different locations. We had some transportation concerns going between the 2 locations, so this would set it up, I think, just for a better outcome for everybody.
Well, I still say I'm disappointed. I think Simple Brown, wasn't quite directed to provide a more efficient solution for us. So, yeah, I'm not really a fan of giving up an opportunity for a cultural amenity over pickleball. I'm a tennis player, so that's really not helping.
Yeah. I will say that in the vision plan, we'll be looking at comprehensively what PRL's supposed to be doing and what is the city asking for, what are the citizens wanting and expecting. And so there's opportunities, certainly in the future. We're going to update the cultural master plan, which it's time to do that as well. So I think there are plenty of opportunities to enhance the cultural life in our community, and I agree with you, it's important.
Well, I'd be a no on this, but yeah, okay.
Thank you. While a great black box theater is something to enjoy, there is a fabulous one 5 minutes from this location. A full theater and a black box theater at the Apex. And I don't think, while we are a first-tier suburb, we can't be all things to everybody. There's certain athletic things that Westminster does, soccer, for instance, whereas most of the youth baseball happens Arvada. So it's a great partnership from that standpoint too. So we take advantage of the Apex Center. We take advantage of community theater in both Louisville and Lafayette, but I don't see it as an advantage of spending $12 million to duplicate something that is literally a stone's throw away too. So I would enjoy it if it was there, if we had somebody to run it, if we had an active group, but even at $12 million, I wouldn't be able to buy that part. So I like the fact that the space, not just the pickleball part of it, but the flexibility of the space. If we have preschool down there, the age population within 2 miles of there is very young, and so we may be able to have an opportunity for greater programming along that way too. So that's my thoughts.
Mayor Pro Tem?
Timely is my comment because we just heard, and so
here you guys are with a solution. So I hope that there is also warm weather ability in this, and that's part of your program. I know the desire for the theater, and it's unfortunate that it's not going to work. So there's a little bit of a disappointment. But, I think that this makes sense. I mean, I'm supportive. I am questioning though as I look at this. Is there any additional looking at Countryside? Countryside used to be a place where people played racquetball. We have space back there. Is that when you start going into the master plan? Are you because I mean even racquetball is still a thing. I work out at Vasa. Plenty of people come in there and play racquetball. So I'd be interested what we could do with that space opposed to just sitting there.
Yeah, definitely. I think the master plan as we go through that, obviously with Westview that is right next door, not right next door, but I think up the street a little bit. There's some racquetball courts there. Obviously, Countryside is a seasonal operation right now at the pool. Westview, one thing that certainly I think would be discussed, and again to see what the residents' desires are, is Westview was originally built to add a pool right on the back side of it. The way the locker rooms are set, the infrastructure is there. That was built, 20-some years ago. But if that's a desire, I think through that master planning and vision planning, we would look at something that, and then really talk about what is the best use of Countryside as it is. It's a great home right now to summer camp, and the summer use of that, as well as there's the temporary pickleball courts there, sand volleyball. So I think that'd be part of it, is to look at that overall offering in that area and see what makes sense.
We'll tell you, Tom Romensberger, that we named the ball field after, would like to hear that, because that was something every time I saw him, he'd ask when he was getting his pool at Westview. So.
Yeah, we hear it often, actually.
Thank you.
Councilor Zadi?
And thanks for this. I share Councilor Namella's half of what she's saying, where it's heartbreaking, right? This community around there, a lot of folks really wanted a theater nearby. And I get your point, Councilor Seymour. It's close. Apex is close, but folks want something to call their own sometimes. And there's a lot of artists in the city who don't have an opportunity to express themselves. So that's what we've heard for a while. However, I think from a prioritization standpoint, what I like the most about this plan is the sheltering. I think that's a much more urgent need. If we had to, I would love all of it, obviously. Let's do everything. But if we want to do something first, we got to do the sheltering first. And I'm curious to know, so the question I have for you is, to Mayor Pro Tem's point, what is the plan for cooling and warming centers? Do we have that yet as to what that looks like? Because if you're not going to change out the HVAC, how are you going to, so if you can give some details there.
Yeah, absolutely.
And then my second question is related to what's the criteria for activating the emergency sheltering? So when does that actually turn on?
I can certainly address the cold weather sheltering. We've done a ton of work to really define that very carefully, when we would activate, and what are the exact weather conditions that would cause us to go down that path. We haven't had a real facility to do the cooling centers in the summertime until now. And so we need to really look at those protocols and determine what are the exact weather conditions and when we would activate the cooling centers. Obviously, it's a growing problem and we need to figure that out. So we will be coming back to you with more detail on that.
And I'll just add, timing-wise, if it's supported tonight, again, Highland Hills will be vacating the space in the next few weeks. We'll need some time to retrofit it, but we fully anticipate, when we get to end of November, December, when the cold weather comes, that we should be ready to go for that. So timing-wise, it works out well to be prepared for those.
And can I ask if staff can come back with proposals on other locations for the theater? I know we have a ton of places where that could be.
So this would be another indoor okay of the facility in the south end of the city. Could you, refresh my memories, how many indoor of the recreations centers, say north of 112th we have on the north side of the city?
Great question. We are lacking in some north side facilities. I think that's again part of that vision plan is to see what up north. When you look at City Park, the rec center, fitness center right there on 105th, that's truly our furthest north one, kind of in the middle or east side. Westview is further up on 108th, but that's far on the west side. So again, that's something that we've talked about and trying to identify through this vision plan is there the ability to get up to 120th or 128th, 136? But right now, City Park is the furthest north on this side of the city.
But then, of course, this is not a core function of our city.
We focus on the wellness and opportunities for all residents. We're fortunate that we see 1 million visits a year through our facilities and our programs. And so we want to try and add to that and in an economical way. But I think just those people that we come in and hear from, of those 1 million people, I think they show value in what we're able to offer.
Thank you.
I like the idea of indoor pickleball. It's not the fact that we don't have cultural amenities within our city. We partner with Highland Hills, and they have wonderful Wednesdays as a performance-driven entertainment base. We have Catamounts that come in June. We have Arts Week that staff is working their butts off of in September for it's turning into Arts Month. We have neighborhood nights every Friday, including a la carte. Like, it's not like we're short on cultural attractions and amenities for Westminster. I think that we're doing what we can with what we have, and I appreciate that as far as working with other municipalities. I think that that's also important, just because I think if we get to the point where we're trying to be resourceful for everything, we lose sight on the fact of what we actually have and what we can actually provide. And so I'm for the option 2, which is the indoor pickleball. I think that makes the most sense for this location.
I'm disappointed, as you are, especially with the art district being down in that area, and they have tried so hard to make things work, and so there'll be great disappointment. But numbers speak, and we already have a long list of things from our CIP plan that we can't afford, so I can't justify it. But when we're looking, I hope we aren't just looking at downtown or up north. I hope we look in the arts district to supplement it. So also with the shelters, transportation issues. We've got transportation issues with the people up in my neighborhood and further north that I see with sheltering. So one shelter to me is not going to make it. We have people that can't make it down to 272nd. We got to figure it out. If we're going to do for some, we got to figure out what we offer. So those are my concerns. If you had trouble with using Westview just because of the southern portion of folks, well, we have a clan of folks along Dry Creek, along all that open space. I'm seeing more and more that we've got issues. So it's not just down in historic Westminster. So we've got to think bigger and broader, because if you had an issue with Westview, you've certainly got an issue down at the MAC. So
do we got, how many for option 2? I heard either 4 or 5, so.
I like portions of option 2. There was another sport than pickleball.
4.5.
2A plus.
We'll have a golf simulator.
Golf
But
simulator.
just one tennis court, right?
Okay.
Good.
We're good. We'll
Fine-tuned
pander you
action.
as you get it going. All right, thanks. They just traveled too far.
All righty.
We have reason for executive session?
Thank you, Mayor. There is a proposed executive session for the purpose of discussing strategy and progress on the potential trade or exchange of property or property rights and receiving direction for negotiations regarding certain properties and facilities jointly owned and or operated by the city and Highland Hills Park and Recreation District. These would be discussed pursuant to Colorado Revised Statute 246124A and E1 and Westminster Municipal Code 1113C2 and 7.
State your name and that you're willing to go into executive session.
Obi Azadi, yes.
Rich Seymour, yes.
Lindsay Emmons, yes.
Bruce Baker, yes.
Dave Demont, yes.
Sarah Normella, yes.
Nancy McNally, yes. It is 9:59 and we have voted to go into executive session. The next vote is, are you willing to be in executive session and hold things confidential?
Obi Azadi, yes.
Rich Seymour, yes.
Lindsay.
Sorry.
Lindsay Emmons, yes.
Bruce Baker, yes.
Dave Demont, yes.
Sarah Normella, yes.
Nancy McNally, yes.
Mark Freitag, yes.
Barbara Opie, yes.
Tommaso Reda Mishler, yes.
Greg Graham, yes.
Abby Fitch, yes.
Dave Frankel, yes.
Cody Blue, yes.
And Lockemeyer, yes.
Can I have 1 minute to make sure that the live stream's been cut?
Please.
Yes.